Have you ever gone for a walk in the woods and you sit down on a log and it turns out to be a dragon? Well, you are in the right place because today we're going to talk about the Gurt Worm of Shervage Wood. And when I first read about this story, I thought it was actually a giant worm, which sounded amazing. But it turns out that worm is an old word for dragon, which is a little bit disappointing. So I've made the dragon as worm-like as possible in this piece because it's my art and I can do what I want. And if you'd like to own any folklore inspired artwork, then I'll leave the link to my shop below and you can do what you want. And if you could like and subscribe, that would be amazing also. But for today, we're going to talk about the Gurt Worm and why its log-like appearance was its ultimate downfall.
So let's set the scene of our story, which is an ancient woodland in Somerset. And if your geography is as bad as mine, that is in the southwest of England. It's a really old woodland covered in moss and fallen trees from long ago. It's full of beautiful old trees like oak and ash. And if you go in the spring, then you might see the floor carpeted with bluebells and primroses. And in the summer, there's plants like ferns and brambles and whortleberry bushes, which is a key point to this story, and we will come back to that later. But near Shervage Wood, there is a village called Crowcombe, which still exists today and has a population of about 600 people. Its history can be traced all the way back to the year 854, where it was spelt Coom because people had far too many letters back then. And it's one of those beautiful classic English villages with thatched cottages and flower-filled gardens and those old brick houses that had doors so low they're kind of a hazard now. And looking at it now, it's easy to imagine being in this village in the late medieval era where the story is set. And back then, the village had a problem. Farmers were losing livestock, so their sheep and their ponies were disappearing from the fields. The wildlife in the forest was thinning out, and numbers of rabbits and deer were dropping, and people who ventured into these woods were not coming back. So what do we think was causing this? That's right, it's the Gurt Worm. So as we now know, worm is an old word for dragon, and Gurt means huge. And when we say huge, the size of the Gurt Worm was said to be about 2 or 3 oak trunks wide. So this worm was very, very girt. And weirdly, this wasn't the only dragon in Somerset. There's documented tales of the Crowcombe dragon, the Norton Fitzwarren dragon, the dragon of Castle near Roche. You literally could not move for dragons back then in Somerset. Why there were so many dragons, I do not know. But for today, we are just going to focus on the Gurt Worm. And he was a hungry, hungry caterpillar. And like every dragon, he liked to hoard a treasure. But this treasure wasn't the usual jewels or gold or riches. This treasure was whortleberries. And here we are, back to whortleberries again. What are whortleberries? This is another old word for bilberries, but I'm enjoying saying whortleberries far too much. So this fruit is like a blueberry but smaller, and it has red flesh inside. It's got more of a tart flavour, so it's better for baking and jams. And if you've ever gone skiing in Europe, you might have tried a really famous alpine dessert called a tarte aux myrtilles, which is a bilberry jam tart, which is very delicious, and you'll find it on pretty much every menu in all the restaurants if you ever find yourself up in the Alps. But whortleberries are full of antioxidants. They have about 4 times more than your average blueberry. But the problem is their shelf life is really short. So you probably won't see them fresh on the shelves at your local supermarket. You can sometimes find them frozen or dried in a convenient supplement form you can take every day. Sponsor me, Holland & Barrett, you know you want to. But this is a seasonal fruit, ripening from between July to September time. And bang in the middle of that, in August, is the Triscombe Revel. This is a harvest celebration that the people of Crowcombe really wanted to celebrate. Every year they would make traditional wort pies, which I promise would taste way better than they sound, because these were made from fresh whortleberries picked from the woods nearby. So the villagers wanted these berries for their harvest festival, including a lady who features in our story today, whose name has sadly been lost to time. so we shall call her Myrtle. And Myrtle wanted her some of those whortleberries. She made the best wort pies around. She'd bring them to the festival, freshly baked, still warm and gooey and jammy, and would serve them with cool, fresh cream that would just make you keep coming back for more. But the problem remained how to get them. Myrtle was not going to go get them because people were going into those woods and they were not coming back. No one else in the village would go because they all knew the stories too. However, one day, a stranger comes into town, a woodcutter looking for wood to cut, and we'll call him Jack. And Jack is just an ordinary guy. He's not a knight, he's not rich, he's not famous. He just wants some wood to cut. And Myrtle sees this as her opportunity. And she says to Jack, well, I know a place where there's loads of wood. And she directs him over to Shervage Wood. And she says, well, how about you go check out this wood? I bet you'll find loads of wood you can cut. And while you're out there, how about, if you see any of these whortleberries just kind of lying around, how about you just pick some up for me? That would be fab. Jack thinks this sounds great, and he agrees. Myrtle gives him a cheese sandwich and a cider for his trouble, and waves him off as he disappears into the thick of the woods. So Jack gets there, and he sees all these amazing oak and ash trees, and is like, great, this is exactly what I was looking for. And he is living his best life, just chopping this wood down. And while he's doing this, he also sees a lot of ripe whortleberries. After some time, chopping wood is quite hard work, I hear. He has a rest and sits down on a log to crack open this cider. As he's taking a sip, he feels the log move and slightly wiggle underneath him. Surprised, he jumps up and grabs his axe and, without even thinking, just chops the log in half. Both ends of the log run in opposite directions away from each other, because of course this was no log at all, this was the Gurt Worm. And because the two ends had run in opposite directions, they couldn't meet back up to join together again, because apparently that's what it could do. So Jack just accidentally defeated the great dragon tormenting this local village and killing all the livestock and wildlife and people. But Jack's just an ordinary guy. He's got a cider and a sandwich to finish. So he sits down, finishes his snack, and then he fills his hat with whortleberries, collects his wood, and heads back to the village. Myrtle is surprised but happy to see him return, and as he's handing over the berries, he says to Myrtle, there was a dragon in there. And Myrtle feigns ignorance and says, oh, did you not know? Did no one tell you? And Jack says, yeah, but she was a Crocoon woman. Don't love you for that comment, Jack. A remark like that would definitely get you cancelled nowadays. But he did save the day, and the villagers were able to have their festival, and Myrtle was able to bake her famous wort pies and make that money. And everyone lived happily ever after. Except for the worm, which I feel kind of sad about because he looks kind of cute here. And I would probably keep one if it didn't eat people. But I really loved this story, and I think it's just another example of how British folklore loves ordinary people just living their daily lives, apart from the whole dragon in the woods, but you know what I mean. And since reading this story, I think the next time I'm in the woods, I will definitely look twice before sitting down on a log.
And here's the print and the matching sticker. I hope you found the Gurt Worm as interesting as I did, and if you want to stick around for more interesting folklore tales, then don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any interesting folklore stories that you think I might not know about or you want to see painted, then please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you next time.
Secret Howl update. Here is my own little Gurt Worm, slinked out on the floor, drowsing after a full dinner. Not as big as the Gurt Worms, but still must be slept off.